Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. This is episode 320. I'm your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Saturday. Yes, a Saturday evening here in mid-January, and I'm joined, as I often am, by Scott Coleman. Scott, we were going to record tomorrow, and instead, Alex made a move on a Saturday. How are you?
Hello, Brad. I am always doing well because we have a transaction to talk about. It had been a few weeks since anything. Was it the Ha-Sung Kim signing was the most recent one that we got? But Tyler Kinley's back, and maybe there was a little bit of an unconventional path to having him on the team for next season and maybe in 2027. But a move I think a lot of people thought was possible, and I'm glad to have Tyler Kinley back in the mix.
I am too, and yeah, to back you up, I think it was December 15th when Kim signed, so nearly a month ago at this point as we're recording this. We should say again, it's Saturday night, so if something happens on Sunday, we'll probably do a podcast soon, but just know this is an early recording than usual. Also, we should say our colleagues, Sean and Steven, recorded a show on Friday night about the very interesting, complex, lots of questions about the Braves TV broadcast situation. And I listened to that, enjoyed it. People have given us a lot of good feedback on that. But I know it was Friday night. So if you missed that episode, listen to that one as well. It's in the feed, no matter where you have your podcast. So Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. But we will focus heavily today on the Braves signing Tyler Kinley. It's a one-year deal with a club option for 2027. I like to call that the Alex Anthopoulos special to get the number down in the first year. It's a $3 million contract in 2026. Locked in. That's pretty cheap, actually, for Tyler Kinley. And then it's a $5.5 million club option for 27 with a $1.25 million buyout that is similar to what the buyout was this last season when the Braves chose to decline that option. So you alluded to it. I think everyone's comment. This is not groundbreaking analysis, but it feels like this is going to just happen. Unless Tyler Kinley got a deal that I did not foresee, I think the Braves also probably thought, I won't say they knew, but they probably thought that they could bring him back at a lower number or at least a relatively similar number when they declined that option. I believe we said that on this show when they did that at the time. And in the end, they get him for, yes, they had to pay the buyout. The buyout, by the way, still gets paid. That they cut him on a couple of, months ago now. But even with the buyout included, they're still paying him less in 26 than that option was, which I believe is probably a win on the whole for the Braves.
It definitely is. And quick math, $3 million this year. The Braves already paid him a $750,000 buyout. And next year, if the Braves want to move on, there is a $1.25 million buyout. So that's $5 million. What the Braves got is $500,000 less in guarantees by declining Kinley's option. And they have a club option now for next year for $5.5 million, which is a reasonable amount. And I think it made sense, especially because we know how good Tyler Kinley was after the unexpected trade at the deadline. We did a show. It's like, why are the Braves adding a reliever? They're dead. They stink. What are we doing?
Literally the only buying move the Braves made at the deadline. What a wild few weeks that was in retrospect.
Yes.
All the way around. But we'll leave that there for now.
Yeah. Odd trade deadline. Nothing really happened, but they did add Kinley, and we figured they must see something in his profile, just like they saw something with Pierce Johnson with the Rockies a couple of years ago, and it worked out. And Kinley probably isn't going to be the sub-1 ERA superstar that he was in August and September with the Braves, but there was a lot in his profile to really like. His underlying numbers were great. His swing and miss rates were really, really strong. And the Braves really made a significant change with Kinley by making him throw his slider, which is a very, very good pitch and was a big reason why he was so successful with the Braves.
For sure. And you allude to it, but beyond the ERA, which obviously I think everyone with a brain knows is not sustainable, it was 0.72 with the Braves. His advanced numbers were better. FIP of 2.74, xERA 2.71. xFIP was a little bit higher in 25 innings, but it was not anything. There was a lot of encouraging signs. And he doesn't walk anybody, which is a positive in my book. I hate guys that walk people unless they can strike out a ton, which is fine if they can. But you mentioned a slider. It's his best pitch. And because they threw that pitch more, his stuff plus, which is a metric that's not, I won't claim to know everything that goes into it, but it's a trusted metric across baseball to just say, hey, how good is your stuff? And his stuff is above average. It's a 106 last season in part because he threw the slider more, and the slider is a bona fide top-level pitch. So if they kind of build his arsenal around that, the fastball, by the way, isn't very good, and everyone knows it. The numbers show that, but he doesn't work off of it anymore. He works off the slider, and that definitely unlocked some of what they probably saw in him with the Rockies. And this is one of those examples that we say all the time where you can't look at ERA as an indicator. I mean, it's an indicator of what's happened in the past. I'm not saying that it's not. People do. It does matter. Clearly, it's performance-based metric. But projecting in the future, teams are, I promise you, not looking at ERA as much as they are other things. And this is a good example of that. Back when they went and got him, but also the willingness to say, hey, he probably isn't this guy ERA-wise that he was with us, but we still think he's a good reliever.
And it's the new money ball for the Braves is identify Colorado Rockies players, especially
Rockies,
pitchers.
trade for them for cheap.
Yes.
And profit.
And then sign them to reasonable deals. And, good on Tyler Kinley. He was a guy who was having a terrible year with Colorado. And at 34 years old, soon to be 35, he probably had thoughts of, man, is my career basically done? And he makes the most of a trade opportunity with the Braves through really, really good innings for this team. And I know maybe folks weren't super locked into every inning of the Braves in August and September as they were just kind of counting out the days on the calendar in a lost season. But Kinley was really good, and he got a lot of big outs. He continued to take the ball every couple of days, 25 appearances in 2 months. He's been durable throughout most of his career, and a guy who clearly won favors with Brian Snitker and the coaching staff because he was throwing important innings, or at least as important of innings as they could be when the Braves were effectively out of it. It made a lot of sense. Good on Kinley for getting $3 million guaranteed, could be $4.25 million, and he could also be a member of this bullpen for the next 2 years. And because it was only 2 months, it's also nice to know the Braves did not have to go to a multi-year commitment, because if there was some smoke and mirrors to his game, if he struggles this upcoming year, you can shake hands in 12 months and say, thanks for everything, but we're going to go a different way.
Yeah. And, not to go kind of over on this stuff either, but his projections, whether it's zips or steamer or depth charts, however you want to kind of couch those, they're all in the range of him being a pretty good reliever, but not a great one, like an ERA in the high threes, low fours kind of thing. And in general, those projections tend to bring guys to the middle. Even the great players, usually it's like, hey, that's a little bit modest for him, etc. It's just worth saying, like, they still think he's a pretty good reliever. In fact, I want to say in the Fangraphs depth chart projections, he's somewhere in the 75 to 100 range across Major League Baseball, which might not seem impressive, but there are 30 teams in Major League Baseball, which means he's the number 3 guy, probably or so, in a bullpen. And for the Braves, that is all that he basically needed to add. Like, he's the 4th guy, 5th guy in this bullpen. When you factor in the top 2 and Dylan Lee would all be ahead of Tyler Kinley for sure. You can debate Aaron Bummer all day, and we won't on this podcast. I pledge everyone that we will not do that. But at the very best, Tyler Kinley is like your 4th, 5th reliever and making $3 million. And that's like a very reasonable, it's not sexy. I'm not saying that it is, but it makes total sense for a guy that they clearly have a relationship with and unlocked.
There's a lot of depth in this bullpen. And we know just the never-ending carousel from a year ago, it was excruciating to watch. I mean, every podcast over the summer, it was like, okay, when are they going to move on from Aniel De Los Santos? And when are they going to move on from Rafael Montero and the other guys they were shuttling through that were just clearly not it for this team? We're going to talk about the bullpen as a whole here in a moment, but it feels much better than it did a year ago, where they were bringing in Hector Neris 2 weeks before opening day and then pitching Hector Neris on opening day. I mean, that's how dire things were a year ago. And I got to say, Brad, and then we'll move on, but this offseason, man, if you told me 2 months ago this offseason was going to be the one the Braves are going to have, even if I still feel like they need to add a starting pitcher, I am thrilled with this offseason so far. With the additions on the infield, with Kim and Dubon, Yastrzemski in the outfield, they're at DH, and the bullpen additions they've made. I mean, I feel really, really good about the moves of the last 2 months, and hopefully there's one more big move left to put a cherry on top of all of it.
I strongly agree. I wouldn't call it an A plus unless they add a starter, but it's certainly in a positive direction. I feel good about the way things have gone. We did say, I know that you and I did, and I think Sean Steven too, like they probably needed one more proven-ish reliever that they could trust. I thought so. Kinley is They were not, and also I didn't want to spend a lot of money on that, which I know Steven said, I know we said too. Alex tends to spend on bullpens. This is not that. This is a very modest contract, which is exactly what I wanted them to do. Whether it was Kinley or Pierce Johnson or somebody else in this realm that's like, hey, that's a pretty good reliever for a pretty low cost. They did that, box checked. And hey, if they want to add one more of these $3 million relievers, I'm fine with that. Just don't spend $10 million on a reliever and we'll be good.
Yeah, for sure. And even with Kinley in the mix, $3 million, luxury tax wise, the Braves are still about $30 million shy of the big tier that starts to impact draft picks. So you would presumably think they could go out and add a starting pitcher. They could also trade someone like Aaron Bummer if they need to free up some more money to make other additions. So there's still, as we have about a month left until pitchers and catchers report, I feel pretty damn good about this state of the roster right now. And I feel much better about the bullpen with Kinley out there as a more proven commodity than some of the guys who are probably going to get a chance come spring training.
So we should go ahead and pivot a little bit to the bullpen as a whole. We talked around it a little bit already, but just kind of resetting where the bullpen is because it's a topical conversation with this signing. I looked this up today, post Kinley edition. The folks at Fangraphs have this basically in real time depth chart projections, and it incorporates Steamer and a couple other things. It's not gospel. They will definitely say that, but it's a good rough back of the napkin projection of what teams look like in real time. And they have the Braves at number 8 in bullpen Fangraphs WAR in all of baseball, not the National League, in all of baseball. That's a pretty good unit. Is it a top tier unit? No, but given what the uncertainty level was, and we talked about it a lot earlier in the winter, like the Braves bullpen was a real question going into the winter for the first time in a while, given all the injuries and the free agency of Iglesias before they signed Suarez, all that. It was like, hey, this might be kind of a rough group. You fast forward to now, and I feel pretty good about the bullpen, and the projections that are not taking out all the emotion that you and I might have about it are saying, hey, this is a pretty good bullpen. Like, if you're 8th in baseball on paper, that's not an elite unit, but it's a good one.
Definitely. And let's talk about kind of the guarantees in this bullpen now, or the very likelies.
Yeah.
You have Raisel Iglesias for the 9th inning, or we believe for the 9th inning.
That's been reported, and they've said as much. So yes, I think that's right.
You have Robert Suarez probably for the 8th inning, big time free agent addition. You now have Tyler Kinley, and you have Yoel Payamps, who the Braves gave $2.25 million to guaranteed a couple of months ago. We did see Payamps a little bit at the end of the season, but on the right side, sure, Payamps at $2.25 million. If he has a 19 ERA in the spring and his velocity's down 3 miles an hour and he's just getting absolutely blown up, then maybe Payamps is not a 1,000% lock. But to me, I think given the track record, I think Iglesias, Suarez, Payamps, and now Kinley on the right side are all locks for this group.
I think you drew the line in the right place. I think Kinley is an absolute lock. Obviously, Iglesias and Suarez. Payamps, exactly what you just said. I fall a little bit short of the lock word with him because I want to be very literal about the word lock. And I think that he is cheap enough and also doesn't have the record of performance with the Braves where they would be like, hey, if this is going really bad in March, they might be like, you know what, we'll eat the $2 million and move on.
Yeah. But really bad.
90%. I mean, it's a high number. He'd be in the bullpen. It has to be bad, to your point. So I'm with you. That's 4 guys on the right side. Obviously, they've invested the most on the right side, given that Iglesias and Suarez are the 2 8-figure relievers. They are your 1-2 with a bullet, obviously. The left side is actually not bad. I think people overlook it a little bit because they're familiar names. Only one of them is an elite or even a really good reliever. But a lot of teams have much worse left-hand situations than the Braves do. Dylan Lee, Aaron Bummer, and Dylan Dodd. I think that the Braves would probably still be willing to give Aaron Bummer away in a trade. At least relatively give him away, like not pay to get off of him, but it's more the contract. Aaron Bummer, controversial big figure as he is, it's more money than you'd like to spend on Aaron Bummer. Even as an Aaron Bummer defender, he's too expensive for what he probably might be. But if you, just for a second, practically, once the lights come on, the season starts, what he makes doesn't really matter anymore. He's a pretty good reliever. Like if he's your second or third lefty, like that's a pretty good spot to be in. And Dylan Lee is really good. He wasn't perfect last year, but this is a guy with a record of being quite a good left-handed reliever. And then Dylan Dodd is a guy, but like he's again, if he's your seventh guy in the bullpen, that's pretty normal.
Dylan Dodd is interesting, and I was looking at Dodd a bit more, and I agree exactly with what you just said on Dylan Lee, assuming health, locked in. And Bummer, you have to hope that he bounces back, that his shoulder is healthy now that he's had 7 months away. He was okay last year, but his stuff did fall off, and I guess it's not a 100% certainty he will be with the team come opening day. Dylan Dodd's really interesting. If he is your third lefty in the bullpen, I'm okay with it. Dodd had some fascinating reverse splits last year. Now, we're only talking about a handful of games, about 25 games or so, but Dodd was fantastic against righties, but he was actually kind of terrible against lefties, which was interesting because he is, of course, a lefty. It's a small enough sample that I don't know if I necessarily can just put that in pen moving forward, but Dodd did show he can get righties out. Maybe he can get better against lefties, and I believe he is out of options as well. So if the Braves can't get Dodd on the roster, the big league roster, or if he's on the injured list, I would be shocked if they could get Dodd through waivers. So because of that, I think Dodd is pretty likely to be on this bullpen. Maybe not a guarantee. Same caveats apply. If he's terrible, you probably move on. But I think that those three, Lee, Bummer, and Dodd, are probably your three lefties in the bullpen to begin the year.
I've actually seen two conflicting things, and I will raise my hand and say I haven't looked this up beyond this. I saw one that said Dodd has an option and one that doesn't, and I don't know which is correct. Like Fangraphs has Dodd as having an option right now, and if that's true, that would be both useful and not useful for him. You know what I mean? Like the Braves have tended to keep guys that don't have options and then option guys down to Gwinnett that do have options and all those things. I will raise my hand. I don't know the answer, and we probably should, but that's on us right now. But Dylan Dodd's good. Like I think obviously it's a small sample size, but I'm guilty of this until we start talking about him today and prepping for this podcast. I didn't really realize that I kind of not that he was elite, but he was pretty darn good last year in 35 innings. Not a huge sample, but like it's the guy who was a former real prospect as a starter and became a really a very normal path. And I think again, if he's your third lefty, you're feeling pretty good, especially when
Oh,
you
yeah.
have other options if you need to. So that's 7 right there. You got some other guys, either starters or potential starters who could be in the bullpen. There's almost always somebody you add during spring training or right before. You got prospects. Just to name a few, Hayden Harris is a Braves fan favorite prospect, could be in the bullpen. John Carlos Lara is another Braves fan favorite prospect, could be in the bullpen. Still got Dansby Hernandez kicking around. We've always been a little bit lower on him, but if he's your 8th guy in the bullpen, not really a bad deal, I wouldn't say. James Karinchak, Ian Hamilton. I mean, I don't know. The starters we should always talk about for a second. Every time we talk about Ronaldo Lopez being in the bullpen, YouTube yells at us because guys, I understand he wants to start. We read it. I promise we see everything that you guys see. I promise. They still might put one of these guys in the bullpen. Lopez, Holmes, and Elder is the one that's like, I don't know. Elder's just more of a starter profile, a low end one. But at the end of the day, it's a fundamental disagreement that we have with some people around Braves country that we think. I don't want to speak for you. You can correct me that they need another starter, and if they sign another starter, that means they have these starters who are not kind of have nowhere to go but the bullpen. But Holmes and Lopez have both been relievers. It's not like some revolutionary concept. I don't know. It's just funny to me.
I think ultimately the fate of Lopez and Holmes, assuming they're healthy and assuming they make it through spring training healthy and they feel good to go come opening day, is going to be impacted by whether or not the Braves add a starting pitcher in the next month because they have 3. You add one more, that's 4. And they might want to carry Bryce Elder, who I believe is out of options. You also have Joey Wentz floating around. If they want to keep Wentz around, Wentz is out of options. Lopez, I mean, we saw how effective Ronaldo Lopez was in the rotation 2 years ago. But before that, he was a lights out reliever. And he kind of walked back his I want to start a little bit at the end of the season. He had a quote or two saying, you know what, like I want to start, but if I go back to the bullpen, I'm not going to fight him too much on it. And then we have to just cross our fingers that Grant Holmes's elbow is healthy. There's just a lot of kind of things up in the air right now with the back end of the rotation and probably the 8th and only spot available in the bullpen. But these things have a way of working themselves out. If it means you have to put Holmes or Lopez in the bullpen, great. You've added an awesome weapon to help you bridge the gap from the 6th to the 9th inning. If they have to start, they can start. Like, well, these things will get resolved. I am confident.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
No.
This is a good situation to be in.
Yeah, I agree with that framing. It's not a problem. Um, one of the pushbacks that we get about our starting pitching position is that people start to just list starters and get to the numbers that they want to get to and say these guys are all good. What's the point? And we always say like you need more starters than you think that you do. And yeah, the Braves have three guys that are fully in locked pen, whatever color pen you want to in the rotation if they are healthy. We know that in Sale, Schwellenbach, and Strider. Then you have the next tier down of Waldrop, who's also a guy that people love, and I get why, but like isn't like a proven entity big picture, but was good last year. Then you have Elder, Holmes. I think Holmes and Lopez are ahead of Elder in my opinion, but like already you're at enough guys to where if by some miracle every one of those guys is healthy on opening day, I can pretty much promise you that one of them or two of them will be in the bullpen on opening day because Grant Holmes and Ronaldo Lopez are not going to the minors. Like maybe Hurston Waldrop would go to the minors, but even then, you're either putting Bryce Elder in the minors or what. Like I'm all about signing another starting pitcher, and this is not a problem because of the utility. In part because, not only because, but in part because of the utility of the other guys they have. But like having these guys be in the bullpen is not a problem. It might actually help you. I think Lopez is probably the least likely to be in the bullpen because he wants to start. They've invested in him. He was the best starter of this group in the one time he actually was healthy. But this is for later on. It's just one of those things that always comes up. And I get it, but it does help you round the bullpen out a little bit. So we're talking about the bullpen now.
For sure. And man, I mean, I feel pretty good about who is currently in the bullpen. If you add Lopez or Holmes in there, I mean, that becomes like an actual strength of this team.
Yeah, and even Elder, like I'm not a big Bryce Elder guy. It's very normal for a team to have a Bryce Elder type in its bullpen to be like the long man, like your Josh Tomlin type of guy. Like Bryce Elder, I'm skeptical is going to have some unlocking as a reliever, but they could have an eighth guy in the bullpen that just is basically the 3 inning guy when they need one. That's not a crazy thing to have him in. As much as I'm again not super high on Bryce Elder compared to everybody else, even if he's in that role, it could be helpful to the team.
For sure. And, Bryce is not a flamethrower, but if he knew he only had to throw a couple innings every few days, could he add 2 miles of velocity onto his fastball and just let it all go, knowing that he's not going to be asked to throw 90 pitches and cover 5 or 6 innings? I mean, maybe it's easier said than done, but that's not out of the realm of possibilities. I think it's a good thing, Brad, that we're talking about so many pitching options,
Yes.
especially after last year, where, I mean, they were literally claiming dudes off the couch to make starts and to pitch out of this bullpen. It feels like going into spring training, we feel about as good as you can feel depth wise with this group. And then if they had one more starter, even more so. And give me every single good pitcher we can possibly get to cover 162, and then also have those guys healthy and relatively fresh in October.
I have a question for you before we get out of here about the bullpen. And it's basically this. If the Braves do nothing else in the bullpen, and by that I mean externally, they just have the guys in the organization. Are you okay? Are they done? Because that's the next question. Is like, okay, starting pitching, there is a global disagreement on this, but our show believes they need another starting pitcher. We've said that enough. We can leave it there for now. Bullpen wise, if they don't add anything else external, are you okay, or do they need something else? That's kind of the next question on this particular topic, I would say.
Yes, with one caveat. I feel good about this bullpen. However, if they were to trade Aaron Bummer to clear up some salary, then I would argue they probably need to go out and add a more proven lefty, not somebody at $10 million, which is what Bummer's making, but a more proven lefty for a $3 or $4 million commitment, because Dylan Lee is good, but he's had injury problems. Dylan Dodd was pretty good for about half a season in the bullpen, but he is hardly proven. And that's mostly it from the left side. I mean, maybe the Braves are really bullish on Hayden Harris from the left side, but for my money, unless Bummer is either traded or if they have concerns about his shoulder that shut him down in September, then I would be interested in adding somebody on the left side. But otherwise, yeah, I'm good with this. I mean, maybe it's famous last words. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Hayden Harris because I'm sure we would have heard about it if we didn't talk about him. We did mention him earlier, but as far as like, there's a world where they believe that he is just their third left-handed reliever, and that might be. I'm not ruling that out. I am always a little bit less sure of unproven guys at major league level than some fans are, which is fine. That's just my makeup, and I do like Hayden Harris as a reliever prospect. I think
Oh
he
yeah.
might be good as soon as this year. We just don't know that he is. Other guys on the 40 man that are left-handed, you mentioned Joey Wentz, but he could be in this bullpen very easily, I would say. I know he started for the Braves last year, but he is no options, left-handed pitcher, could be useful. I believe Danny Young is on the 40 man right now, if I recall correctly, as a
Mm.
left-handed pitcher. Um, I'm looking at the wrong roster, I think. Uh, no, he's there. Danny Young, and then they got rid of Waldichuk today. Jose Suarez is also the other left-hander in the organization right now on the 40 man. So they have a few left-handed pitchers. I'm kind of with you. I would prefer to have Aaron. So it's a dichotomy with Aaron Bummer. Like, I think that's not a great use of resources financially in a league where it's not like the NBA where every dollar matters, but if you're worried about luxury tax stuff, and the Braves probably are at least somewhat concerned by that, having $10 million in Aaron Bummer is not ideal. But he is a useful pitcher and a much more proven pitcher than the rest of these guys are. So I'm kind of with you. I keep thinking like they might just look up and say, because Alex just always defaults to having more in the bullpen than we might think that he needs. Would it surprise you if he signed another $3 million reliever?
Mm.
Like I wouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, I don't know who it would be. I think Kinley was the guy we were kind of not necessarily banking on happening, but if you asked me 2 days ago, what is the most likely move for the Alex to make in the bullpen? It was either going to be sign Tyler Kinley or trade Aaron Mummer. I'm not really sure which one it was, but it ended up being sign Tyler Kinley, at least for now.
Yeah. I would be pretty surprised, to be honest, if they signed another reliever just from the numbers game. Like, unless they really are concerned about an injury to someone we aren't thinking of, then
Yeah,
maybe. I mean, that's the one thing we don't know. I mean, if Aaron Bummer's working out and he has the
yeah.
bum shoulder and his shoulder is sore, we probably won't hear that publicly, at least until they get to the spring
Oh,
training.
not till February. And I mean, that's did we ever say the name Joe Jimenez? Did somebody say that name on the podcast? I can't remember if
No,
we did or
but
not.
that's probably why. Because I mean, let's talk about Joe Jimenez for a minute.
Yeah, we should.
So the Braves have been whatever the complete opposite of optimistic is,
Well, it's me normally is the opposite of optimistic. Uh,
very pessimistic. Is
yes,
I think reading the tea leaves whenever Alex Anthopoulos has talked to the media. For folks who maybe missed it, Joe Jimenez, of course, missed all of last year with this knee surgery, but then had another knee cleanup procedure. That's concerning. And the Braves have said on the record a couple of times they really aren't going to know what Jimenez can give them until he gets to spring training and starts throwing bullpens. But I mean, this knee sounds like debilitating to him.
yeah,
And
it's bad.
players on the team talk that Jimenez was like struggling to get off the team bus and like struggling to get out of his seat on the airplane after long flights during the 24 season and was gutting it out. And then he has this big time knee cleanup procedure, and then he has another procedure a year later after not being able to really pitch. It's concerning. I am going into next season with the idea that if the Braves get anything from Joe Jimenez, awesome. He'll probably be effective. But I don't know how you bank on anything from him because, I mean, that knee might be career ending at this point.
Yeah, and I guess to answer my own question about would I be surprised, I guess after talking through this, I'd be more surprised if they were to sign another reliever because they do have a lot of options.
Yeah.
Like Jimenez, they're not going to bank on Jimenez, but if he's healthy enough to pitch by June or something, like he's really good when he's always been really good when he's been available, and they're paying him a lot of money. So like he'll have a spot if he's healthy enough to pitch, and then Holmes and Lopez and maybe one of Harris or Lara just is too good to deny in spring training. Very possible. Like if you do the numbers game, even with Alex's predilection for overcompensating on the bullpen, I think it would kind of be surprising now that we talk through it. But hey, it's a good problem. I will not be the one killing them. If they sign a $8 million reliever, I will kill that probably. But if it's a $3 million reliever, I'll be like, you know what? Cool. Is Pierce Johnson available? Did he sign somewhere? I should know this.
You took the words out of my mouth. Yes, as far as I know, Pierce Johnson is available. So if Pierce
Hey,
Johnson's around for $3 million, then sure.
I,
As long
I
as
would 100% do that for $3 million. For
yeah,
six, I would not. But for
no,
three, yes, call it in.
right. Without knowing exactly how much money has Alex has left to spend this offseason at the deadline, sure. But no, I think this group is pretty much done. They also, I mean, maybe they get something out of Ian Ian Hamilton, who was good
Yeah,
with the Yankees like 2 years ago. James Karinchak was someone who was electric a couple of seasons ago, was hurt. The Braves signed him to a non-guaranteed deal. And you know what? There's probably going to be more non-roster additions to this bullpen because these are basically free flyers to see guys pitch and work out in the spring. And if they're terrible, if they get into 3 games and their ERA is 19, on March 3rd, guess what? You're probably going to get cut from camp anyway. But if you strike gold and find your next Tyler Matzik, and all it took was a minor league deal or a non-guaranteed deal, then you should do that 10 times out of 10 and just kind of see if you can strike gold for very little money.
there are approximately 1.2 million of these guys who are DFA'd and signed and DFA'd and signed, and a lot of them are relievers.
Yeah.
George Soriano just arrived yesterday, 2 days ago to the Braves. There's a lot of these guys that will cycle through. They already literally DFA'd one of them to sign Kinley today. Like, it's going to happen all the way through March. It's not a big surprise, but and that's what we're trying to give the high level picture of what's going on. But there will be moves on the margins. And look, occasionally, the reason why you do that is occasionally you will hit one. You can't bank on it, but occasionally you hit one. And that's a great story. You'll find a Tyler Matzik every once in a while where he was on the scrap heap and they just found him, and that was great. And it was literally franchise changing in some ways to win the World Series. But with that said, that is the state of the bullpen at this point in time. Tyler Kinley, welcome back. A good move, not one that we're going to break out the pom-poms for too much, but I quite liked it. I saw it coming through. I was like, oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's even cheaper this year, and extremely Alex coded, which is funny. He has his little tendencies that we all love to kind of poke fun about, but this is one of them, and I think it was a good move overall and a unit that I feel, boy, a lot better about. Now, granted, a lot of that was Iglesias and Suarez, but I feel so much better about the bullpen than I did 2 months ago. It's not even remotely close.
And even 24 hours ago, like
Sure.
just when you list out the names, when you can put Tyler Kinley in that like 5th rung of the bullpen options, it just looks a lot better. And sure, there's no guarantees that Tyler Kinley is going to be good next season. He's going to be 35 years old. Relievers volatile year over year, all of that. But I like the move. $3 million. You can bail after this season for $1 million if you need to. And if he's good, if he shows that the changes that the Braves made with him after the trade in August and September are real, and you've added a really good reliever, you can bring him back next year for $5.5 million. And you've added a weapon for a player. They acquired Kinley for quite literally nothing at the deadline from the Rockies. And those are the kind of moves you should make even in a lost season.
Take a bunch of shots, and occasionally you will hit one of them. And that's where we are right now with the Braves on January 10th. Long way to go. At some point, we'll start ramping up our kind of season preview-ish content, some player deep dives. All that's coming up, folks. WBC is coming in less than 2 months. Spring training, guys will be arriving in spring training, 5 weeks from now? Like, we're getting ever closer. One more plug, by the way. Again, listen to the show from last night. There is real uncertainty with the TV situation. I promise you'll be able to watch the Braves. I've seen freakouts about I can't watch they will find a way to let you watch the Braves. I promise you that. I don't know what it's going to be, but you'll have a way. I promise. Yeah. Anyway, Scott, thank you for being here. If we have new listeners, where can folks follow the Scott Coleman 55 experience as well when you are not trolling me in particular like you were earlier today? I was offline and people started tagging me. Scott's trolling you. I'm like, oh, good. This is going to go well. That's fine. Where can they find you, Scott? It's fine.
I am at Scott Coleman 55. Should we talk Arizona, Michigan for 45 minutes and just hit the button? Yeah, nobody wants to hear that. But yes, Scott Coleman 55 on socials if you want to follow there. And yeah, we'll be back. Hopefully the Braves have another move left in them in this last month of the offseason. And man, we would feel so good about this offseason. We already feel good about it, but we would feel great about it. If this team has one more move, come on, Alex, push the button, little more money, go one extra year. Let's get back to being a really, really loaded roster 1 through 26. I feel good about the Braves right now. I don't think we're far off from feeling really great about their chances.
I agree. And you can follow me if you want to at BT Rowland on Twitter and Blue Sky and all those places. Less baseball probably than Scott because I cover basketball for not a living, but for a substantial part of my life. So you'll get a lot of basketball, but baseball too. I do talk about baseball on those channels. And more importantly, at Hammer Territory on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and please subscribe to the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Very much appreciated when people do that, and tell your friends as well. Ratings, reviews, all that fun stuff. Probably no show on Sunday, considering we're doing the show on Saturday night. But if something happens, we'll always be here. And I promise you we'll be back, and at the very least, in a couple of days on the podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see everybody next time.